Danny was great. I mean, he came across from Collingwood, where he was an assistant coach there under Tony Shaw. He came across in 2000. He was still young, He would have only been in his late 30s.
Wow.
He would have been 38, 39. Still really fit and competitive. Danny was one of the most competitive guys you could get. And the first thing that struck me with him in the first pre-season, that he was doing a lot of the running with us, doing a lot of the ball work with us. So we loved that. And, you created a real connection with him straight away. He brought a game plan with him that we all bought into. Footy was a little bit simpler then. The game plan wasn't complicated, but we all knew what we were doing at any given stage, and we were all on the same page with it. And the first year with him, we just missed the finals, but the next year in 2001, it really clicked. We ended up playing in that prelim final up in Brisbane, and he just connected the whole group. It wasn't just the players. It was, he got Anita, his wife. She really got the girls together, and the club just become a really fun place to be, not just for us, but for players' partners and girlfriends. And and that we hear this word connection now all the time, don't we? And looking back, I think Danny was a little bit ahead of his time. He wasn't afraid to be emotional in front of the players. Like, quite often he would get emotional. That was the first time I'd seen a coach do that. Now we know it's quite common. We encourage guys to open up and be vulnerable. And Danny encouraged that back in the early 2000s. So I look back now and go, gee, shit, he was ahead of his time with that stuff.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, the next few years we didn't quite, do what we wanted to do. But we had good fun under Danny. It was a fun environment. We worked hard, and I really enjoyed him as a coach.
You mentioned the vulnerable stuff, so I'm interested to hear. You said he's ahead of his time. So we've heard Richmond talk about the Triple H in recent years. What kind of things was he doing that was, that provoked the vulnerability amongst the group?
Probably just by not being afraid himself to get up there and show his emotion and be vulnerable about certain things that were happening within the group and, in his own life as well. So, when you see a coach do that, it makes you open up as well. So we probably didn't quite understand it as well as what they do now. He probably wasn't even doing it deliberately, but it was just who he was. He was being real, was probably the word I'm looking for. He's just being himself in front of the group. And he was just a funny guy. Even working in the media with him, he would work for SEN on a Sunday and I worked for 3AW, and at half time you'd go out and get a pie or whatever and something to eat, and you'd bump into Spud. I don't think there was one single time that I didn't walk away from talking to Danny without laughing and tears in my eyes. He just cracked you up every time you saw him, so he made you feel good, and he's sorely missed.
Is that under the pump story true?
100% true. Yeah.
Could you,
it's
for
a
those that haven't heard it?
Yeah, I'll give you the quick version. In Danny's last year, we were struggling, all right? We weren't going well. And, the press were onto it. They knew that something was happening at board level. There's a lot of rumours. Danny, he was in his 5th year, and we were going that way. We were going down. We weren't going up. Had a few bad losses. We got to training on a Monday to have our game review meeting. And as you drove into the car park, all the TV studios had their, OB vans there, with the big aerials that pop up. So all the OB vans were there, and your Tom Browns, it wasn't Tom Brown, but the doorstop sort of type journalism was there, and all the players were getting asked if Danny was going to survive. Are you hearing anything about Danny losing his job? And no comment. So, he was under severe pressure, and he knew it, we knew it. So we get into the team meeting up in the Graham Richmond room, which was upstairs at Punt Road under the old grandstand. And we're all sitting down waiting for the team meeting. And it wasn't going to be a good team meeting. We'd been flogged. So you're sitting there thinking in your mind, gee, I hope he doesn't show that edit, or is he going to show this edit? Anyway, Danny was always punctual. I mean, we had this thing, Tiger Time. You had to be on time. In fact, be early. So we're all sitting there. Everyone was on time and no sign of Danny. And then he eventually walked in about 20 minutes late. A lot of players had their head down. You didn't want to make eye contact because you knew you were going to get a good spray. And back then, it was a bit of the old school philosophy where you still got sprayed. So you didn't want to make eye contact. So a lot of us didn't notice that Danny had walked in with the compressor that you put the air into the footballs with, right? Anyway, he got up the front and he puts the compressor down next to him and he's looking at us and we're waiting for him to say something. And then pretty quietly he goes, "Boys." And as he said that, he's lifted up the compressor and he's holding it up above his head. He goes, "What am I?" And a couple of the guys down the front, like I was down the back, I was too smart, you know.
Yeah.
I'd get down the
Well
back.
done.
Avoid the spit.
Yeah, I'm just a veteran by that point. Get down the back and avoid making too much eye contact. Anyway, he's held it up, and the kids at the front have gone, oh, no, Danny, what are you? And he said, boys, what am I? And again, I think one of the young kids goes, I don't know, Danny, what are you? And he goes, I'm under the bloody pump. And he's got the compressor up here.
That's a classic.
And it's 100% true, and we all just, and that was Danny to a T.
That's so funny.
We all burst out laughing, and
Have you heard that before, Dom?
I don't think I have.
Really?
I don't think I have.
and he got the arse that week.
Oh.
He was under the pump, all right.
Oh, God. That's hilarious.
But that was Danny. He broke the ice with a bit of humour, you know,
Yeah.
because it was a tense, very tense environment.
He was very close to Doss's family.
Yeah, well, obviously, like Dad, and he worked a lot with you and a lot with Spud and a lot of others like
Yeah,
Plow.
he did. He worked with your dad a lot. Yeah.
And I'll never forget one time. So I actually jumped into the business after we sold it, and I was actually looking after our guest speaking stuff. And Spud was my first gig.
Yeah.
And it was Spud and Razor Ray, and they were out in Pakenham somewhere. And I had to go out there and just make sure it all ran smoothly. And I'd met Spud a couple of times because I'd worked at the Saints, and he was doing a bit of coaching there. And and he knew of me. And so go out to the gig. The gig goes super. Like it was, he had everyone in the palm of his hand, as you know, as he always did. And he goes, "Was that all good? Was that all good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it was perfect, mate." I'm on the way home, and I'm pulling into my driveway, and Spud rang me, and I was like, "Oh, I hope he's all right." And he rang me, and he goes, "Mate, I just wanted to just say well done. Like, you know, you're taking after your dad. You're going to be brilliant at this, so on and so on. I hope it all went well."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Mate," and I walked away. I couldn't stop
Yeah.
talking about it for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, not many. I doubt many other guys would have probably done
Nah.
that, you know.
And I think it was only a few months later.